Hi, Joe Clifford Faust here. I'm here today to read an excerpt from my forthcoming novel, Drawing Down the Moon. Just to frame this a little bit, Ricky Gold, who is a cable news personality, is on the run from a bad relationship, and he has met a woman named Kada at a bar in West Texas. They kind of hit it off a little, and they went to Kata's house where they found a dead body, and they also found someone out to kill them, so they went on the run from them. And this scene takes place the morning after their first night on the run, and they are hungry. His stomach rumbled. Of course, he hadn't eaten since it had to be around noon yesterday. He had looked at the road map of Texas and told himself that his next stop would be Amarillo. Someone told him about a steakhouse there where an 8-foot-tall cowboy made the rounds, playing songs on a guitar. Only he had passed through Amarillo a little faster than he had planned. He remembered Kada offering him food. Steak, beef or ostrich or something. She probably hadn't eaten either, just full of wine and Robert Palmer getting ready to go home to Kenny. Leaving the remote on the bed, he opened the door and stepped outside. There was a Pizza Hut and some place on the other side of that called Ed's Route 66 Drive-Thru and Lounge. Neither would be open at this hour. He held on to the door and took a few hesitant steps. On the other side of the highway was a small white building with a flat roof and peeling paint. The curb in front was filled with cars, and people briskly came and went through the door. He could hear a tinny tinkle of a bell each time it opened and closed. He squinted and brought up a hand to shield his eyes from the sun. Irene's Route 66 Donuts. Then the breeze shifted and he caught a whiff of the place, the welcoming scent of yeast and coffee. Gold's stomach growled again. His eyes felt gritty and wanted to close. Some donuts and a quart of milk and he could go right back to bed. There wasn't a cloud in the sky now, and the sun felt warm on his face after sleeping in the chilled climate of the air-conditioned room. Nice place, took him Carrie. I'll have to visit it sometime when I'm not running for my life. He walked past the office and to the edge of the street. Traffic was relatively light, and he crossed over to Irene's Route 66 Donuts without incident. As he opened the door, the smell of the place hit him full on, and his stomach let him know in no uncertain terms that it needed to be fed. The inside of the place was typical of old donut shop chic. A black and yellow tile floor that had been black and white at some point in the last century. Booths with a faded blue vinyl upholstery lined the walls by the windows, most of them filled with customers who were feeding on current wares and the daily paper. The counter was at Formica with a digital cash register, the front of which held a hand-lettered sign. Don't ask us if you can write a check and we won't say no. Behind the counter in a long glass case was a fireworks display of pastries. The bright colors of sprinkles and festive frostings speckled the fresh-baked good earth tones like desert flowers. Everything looked good. May I help you? The words were punctuated by crackling. Gold looked down to see a young girl of 14 staring back at him. She shifted the gum in her mouth and turned so Gold could see her profile. She was about 6 months pregnant. The world is full of things I don't want to know about. She cracked her gum again and repeated the question. Oh, he said, yes. Her eyes drilled into him as he studied her swollen belly. Don't worry, I ain't contagious. Sorry, Gold blurted. Okay, I'll have... He waited for her to pick up a pencil and pad, but she didn't. Shoot, she said. A mixed dozen. No, a mixed dozen and a half. Whatever you call that. 18. Right. Put in some blueberry cake, and are those cherry cake? She nodded. Some of those, a dunker, some jelly-filled crullers. No crullers today, sorry. Okay, well, make it up with some rays and whatever looks good. Everything looks good. She worked the gum hard in her mouth. That it? Coffee, Gold said. 2 your biggest, black, and a quart of milk. Pints okay? A couple of pints, and a couple of orange juices, too, and lots of napkins. Give me a minute. That's fine. He pulled a crumple of bills out of his front pocket and sorted a 20 from the mess, then checked the cases to see if he'd missed anything. The problem was that everything looked good. Even that cake donut that the cop over in the corner was dunking into his coffee. Cop in the corner. Sure enough, there was a cop, sitting in a booth, briefly splashing a piece of donut into his coffee cup before popping it into his mouth, probably about a month on the adult side of 19. All the while, he intently studied pages attached to a boxy metal clipboard. He looked back at the girl who was pulling cartons out of a cooler. 2 pints of milk, 2 pints of OJ? Yeah, we only got half pints of... Then give me 4, he said softly, hoping the cop hadn't seen him. This is not a problem. This is not a problem. That officer over there is my friend. He is going to help Kata and I out of our situation. In fact, I am going to go over and invite him over to the Super 8 for coffee and donuts while we tell him what's happened since last night. For the first time in more than 12 hours, Ricky Gold smiled. Kata was right. Everything is going to be just fine. He walked over to the booth where the young uniform sat thoughtfully chewing and stopped at the corner of the table. On one shoulder was a patch. Quay County Sheriff's Department. Excuse me, officer. The deputy looked up. I'd like to discuss something important with you. The deputy stopped chewing. Color rose in his face. His hand went to his chest. Are you all right? Gold said. The deputy tried to stand too quickly, and the resulting bump sent coffee flooding across the countertop. He reeled back, away from the table, and his back hit the wall between 2 picture windows. Gold looked back at the waitress. He's choking. I know the Heimlich. He turned back to the deputy to see him tugging at something on one side of his belt. He took a step forward and grabbed him by the lapels. It's all right. I'm in control here. The deputy swallowed loudly and gasped for air as something clattered to the floor. Gold looked down to see a pistol spin past him on the linoleum. He let go of the officer and stepped back to pick it up. Tell you what, I've had my fill of these over the last... Gold straightened up with the gun in his hand. The officer raised his arms over his head. Gold looked down at the gun, then at the officer's eyes. Before he could speak, the deputy shouted, "Do what he says and nobody will get hurt!" The shop filled with screams. To the last person, everyone dove out of their seats and cowered on the floor. "No!" Gold shouted, backing away from the officer. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the waitress trying to back away through the kitchen door. "You!" he pointed. "Don't do that. Just give me what I want, okay?" The waitress swallowed her gum with a loud gulp. Gold realized he was pointing at her with the gun. He dropped his arm. "This isn't what you think." "Let these people go," the deputy said, his arms still in the air. Gold whirled on him. "Will you shut up and let me think? This isn't what it looks like." The deputy's eyes darted down. Gold's eyes followed. They stopped at the clipboard. On the front page, now freshly soaked by coffee, was Gold's photograph. He grabbed the clipboard with his free hands. "This is exactly what it looks like," he said under his breath. "I'm sure we can talk about this," the deputy said. "Just let these people go and we'll get a negotiator over here and you get exactly what you want." "Will you shut up?" Gold snapped. "You're what I need." Then he swore loudly. He had to quit gesturing at people when there was a gun in his hand. The deputy went pale and slid down into his seat. "All right, look," Gold announced. "I'm going to explain something here." "Don't hurt us," someone wailed. "I got a wife and kids," said another. "Just shut up and nobody gets hurt." A woman started to cry. Gold spun back toward the deputy, and another flash of brown uniform caught his eye. The door to the men's room was open, and a stocky man with sergeant stripes was coming out, still in the act of zipping his fly. Their eyes connected, and in an instant Gold knew what he was thinking. "Don't even think about it," he blurted. The sergeant raised his hands, palms out to Gold. "I don't want to hurt anyone here," he said. "It's the guy from Amarillo," the deputy said. "Shut up," the sergeant suggested. Gold slowly inhaled and took another step backward, away from the officers, toward the door. "Look, I'm not going to hurt anybody here. Let me get what I came for, and I'll be happy to—" There was a loud screech from outside. Gold looked out the window. It was the Camaro, and in a split second the driver's door opened and Kata popped her head out, facing it with urgency, her arms waving wildly for him. Oh, no. Then she ducked back inside the car and honked the horn for what seemed like an eternity. He looked back at the officers. "Down!" he barked. "On the floor, like the others, and, lock your hands behind your heads, face down." He waited a beat until the officers started to sink toward the floor. From the corner of his eye, he saw the waitress slinking down on the floor behind the counter. "Not you! Get me my stuff, now!" Gold kept backing until he was even with the counter. "Now I want everyone to count to 100. A chorus of voices rose. 1, 2, 3. "In your heads! Do it in your heads, and not till I tell you to start." He tried another breath. He had to fight to get it into his lungs. I'm not going to hurt anyone. Just do what I say until I can figure out what's going on. He jammed the clipboard under one arm and threw the 20 down on the counter. With a trembling hand, the waitress handed him a large bag with Route 66 stamped on the front. Thank you, he said as she sank beneath the counter. 2 more steps and he was at the door. All right, he said as Kata honked again. I'm almost ready for you to start counting. Are you ready? He slowly crouched and laid the deputy's pistol on the floor. Then he rose and pushed back on the door with his butt until the bell tinkled. Count, he shouted, then rolled out the door and ran toward the double-parked Camaro. What do you think you're doing? Run, Kata urged, ducking into the car. I am, Gold shouted, scrambling toward the Camaro. Get in! As soon as he hit the seat, Kata popped the clutch and the Camaro fishtailed away from the donut store, the momentum slamming the passenger side door shut. It's about time, she snapped. You and that leisurely walk out to the car. I was going as fast as I could. Maybe if you lost a little weight, you could run a little faster. Gold rolled his eyes. Forget that. You want to tell me what's going on? I just kept you from getting killed, Richard. He turned and looked out the rear window. Is it the assassin guy? The police. I was talking to them back there, and, Richard, when you left, I flipped to the news. I caught the tail end of this report. They were showing your picture and saying, if you see this man, he's wanted for questioning in conjunction with the wounding of a police officer in Amarillo, so I knew we had to get out fast. She glanced down at the silver clipboard in his lap. She tapped it with a finger. That picture. He nodded. That was one of my publicity photos. So you were talking to the cops back at the donut place? What did they say? Gold squirmed in his seat. They told everyone to get down on the floor and I wouldn't hurt anyone. Oh, Kata said. It sounded like you were having a really productive little chat with them. It's lucky they didn't shoot you on the spot. I can't believe this. Richard, not everyone in the country knows you as the wouldn't-hurt-a-fly newsman for some cable TV station. She tapped the clipboard again. What does this say about us? It's just me, Gold said. Well, in case you hadn't noticed, I'm part of the package, too. What does it say? Gold picked up the clipboard and tried to brush away some of the spilled coffee. He squinted at the blurred text across the top. It's a bolo, he said. What's that? He shrugged. I don't think it's good. It looks like they sent it to all stations in Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Colorado. And they alerted the Border Patrol. The rest is what you heard about being a suspect. What else? He lifted the page with his photograph. Hey, here's a picture of you. Let me see that. Gold smiled and held the clipboard up for her to glance. It was a police sketch with the headline, Female Suspect. The artist had drawn Kata with stringy hair and dark, serious eyes. The person giving the description had missed the cheekbones, the nose was too broad, and the chin was too sharp. She grimaced when she saw the picture. That doesn't look a thing like me. Well, that's good. They made me look like a crack whore. I'm offended. Anything else we should know? The clerk got a make on your tattoo. She'd have had to have been blind to miss it, Kata said. Gold flipped the sketch page up and found another filled with information. Let's see. Police summoned to the store in Amarillo. A 911 phone call for a robbery in progress. Shots fired. The suspect and his companion, a blonde female between 5'10 and 6'2", shot at responding officers and escaped in a burnt orange Camaro with Texas plates. He looked at Kata and then leaned toward the windshield, looking out at the hood of the car. This isn't orange, it's white. It's an off-white, Kata said. More like eggshell. Gold shook his head. There's like a yellowish tint to it, just a trace, like lemon ice. No, she said. I think it's more of a cream color. Cream is too brown for this, Gold said. This is more citrus-looking. It doesn't matter, Kata barked. Under those funky yellow cancer-causing street lamps they put up everywhere, they thought this car looked orange, and that's good for us. I think it would look more copper-colored under those lights, Gold said. It's moot, Richard. They think the car is a color it's not, and that's good. What about the people in the restaurant? Did they get a good look at it when I pulled up? They were all on the ground, counting to 100. Kata shook her head. Please tell me you didn't make them do that. No, never mind. She rocked back and forth in the Camaro's seat. I've got to get off this highway and onto a back road somewhere. They're going to be looking for us. But why would we want to do that? Gold asked. All we have to do is go back and explain that I'm not the one who shot at the officers in Amarillo and things should be fine. There's a lot of other stuff to explain by now, too, like Kenny, and why we disappeared together. It's not like you to walk into the sheriff's office and tell them your story and they say, oh, so glad you came, we're sorry for the misunderstanding, and let you go. Ever hear of circumstantial evidence? I suspect you've got the gun that killed Kenny. The police won't be happy about finding it on you. But I didn't shoot him. Richard, she growled, are you this naive all the time, or are you talking this way to piss me off? Sorry, he mumbled. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. That works in law enforcement, too. A little thing called Occam's razor. The most logical explanation for something is usually what happened. In this case, you came in and shot Kenny and either kidnapped me, or this was something we worked out together. Face it, they're not going to be out looking for a 6'7" Native American mystery assassin when you've got the murder weapon on you and powder residue all over your hands. I never fired this gun, Gold protested. Katie raised one finger and brought it to the roof of the car, coming to rest near a splotch of chewing gum spread out across the upholstery. Remember last night? That still doesn't make it the murder weapon. She swallowed hard. Things were going kind of fast last night, and I don't know this for sure, but I'd put money on the hole under that gum being the same size as the one in Kenny's head. They all looked about the diameter of a pencil, wouldn't you say? No, don't answer that. You think eggshell is copper. Gold rubbed his head. I don't think either of us are thinking straight. Food, Kata said. We need to eat. Wait. Gold reached down and grabbed the donut store bag from between his feet. We're set. Give me something, Kata said. Anything. First thing out of the bag. Gold opened the bag and looked inside. Come on, Richard, I'm starving here. Don't try and save me from white sugar. Not right now. There's no donuts in here. She glared at him. It's money, he said. It was that cop. He told everyone it was a robbery. He laughed. I went in and asked for 18 donuts and everything in the world to drink, and they thought I was robbing the place. And you know what the killer is? I gave her $20 for the food. I'm not laughing, Richard. Well, that's the donut shop scene from Drawing Down the Moon. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Yay, Route 66. And we'll see you in the next video.